Greetings, honorable battle brother.
Brother, today we discuss... I wish we could play the chant this entire podcast, but we can't.
Because we will get demonetized, copyright strike.
Yes. It would be best. So, to our listeners, you know the chant of soup, glorious soup. But not that, and in Latin. The Ultramarine chant. Because today, we talk about the Ultramarines. You may now boo.
Roboute Guilliman. Yes, please. Please boo and or cheer at your leisure now. Get it out of the way now, so you don't have to worry about it later in the episode. Because, boy oh boy, is the community divided on whether or not they like the Ultramarines.
Yeah. From a non-canon standpoint, from a non-lore standpoint, the Ultramarines are very, very, very represented to the point where it's just oversaturation.
Oversaturation.
Yes, to where a lot of the time, if you want a specific kind of model, or if you want to make an army that's not Ultramarines or Dark Angels, you would have to buy the little kit parts.
The conversions.
Yeah, conversions, so that way you can convert your Ultramarines to whatever.
All of the models come based in blue.
Yes.
And all of the box art for all the models are Ultramarines.
Yep. So, people are tired of Ultramarines.
People are tired of Ultramarines.
From a lore standpoint, they're just not as cool.
From a lore standpoint, they're actually one of the coolest.
How?
The problem, I'll get to it, don't worry. The problem is the representation in the modern day, and because we've been forced to stare at Roboute or Bobby G's fucking angry red face every day for the past, 16 years or whatever, people get tired of looking at it.
Yeah. Also, Space Marine 2.
Space Marine 2, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we took a little break for the holidays and for New Year, but back in the new year, we got some big news coming out of the GW tunnel.
Yep.
Space Marine 2 has been, the trailer has been launched.
Yes.
So if you haven't seen it already, please go check it out. It is the coolest thing
GW has ever made. Yes.
Ever.
Without hesitation. Best game.
Yes, so we will talk about Captain, or I guess now he's a Lieutenant, Titus.
Primaris Lieutenant, former Death Watch member, Titus.
Yes, exactly. We'll talk about him at some point in this episode, so buckle down for that shit.
This is gonna be a long one, folks.
This is gonna be a long one, yeah. Fucking fasten your seatbelts for this one. Alright, so, kicking it off, let us begin to speak about Robbie. Robbie was the, also known as the Avenging Son,
yes,
or the Avenging Bean Counter, depending on who you ask.
Particularly if you ask one guy.
Yeah, that guy being Conrad
Kurz,
but whatever. He is the 13th son of the Emperor, and the Primarch of the Ultramarines.
Yes, you may now boo once more.
Yes, please get it out of the way now, so you're focused and ready. Okay, so Guilliman landed on the planet of Macragge, which was, kind of like a civilized world. It was not a death world, like most of the other Primarchs we've covered thus far have landed on. Macragge was a kind of civilized planet. Think literally,
Greece.
Rome.
It was Greece.
It
was Greece, Rome.
Greece, Rome. It was Greece, Rome. It was indeterminate.
Yes.
It was Greece, Rome.
Yes.
It was classical era. I guess you could just call the planet classical era.
Right.
Whatever. It was a nice place to live, especially the city of. I can't remember the city's name anymore.
Blah blah blah. I'm looking at the page.
I think
Konar.
it was just called Macragge.
Yeah, the city was.
Konar
Macragge.
was his father.
Yeah, the city was Macragge.
Yeah. So he was adopted by one of the two consuls of the nation state of Macragge, named Konar, Connor, whatever. And this was Roboute Guilliman's adopted father.
Connor Guilliman.
He adopted him. Connor Guilliman. What a name.
Yes.
He adopted him and named him Roboute, which means Great One. He was raised to be a commander, statesman, a politician, but obviously he was a Primarch, so he absorbed knowledge at a different rate than a normal human child would. So he became big brain.
Yeah. Robbie G-Man was a smart boy.
He was smart.
Yes.
Yeah. he was eventually given the task of subduing the barbarians to the north.
Yes.
The Illyrians, which were an actual historical group of tribesmen. I think it was in like what we refer to now as Macedonia area. I could be very wrong, but I think the Illyrians were somewhere around there. However, in 40K on Macragge, the Illyrians are pretty much compared to, like, think if Rome was the center of civilization and Gaul, which is modern-day France and Germany, that was the barbarians. That's kind of what the Illyrians are alluded to as.
Just general unwashed masses.
Exactly, yeah. Barbarians. How do you know they're barbarians? Well, us, the Romans, considered them to be barbaric, so they are the barbarians.
We don't like them.
Exactly. But he managed to diplomatically incorporate the Illyrians into the Macraggian civilization by challenging the chieftain to a 1v1, in which Roboute Guilliman did not lift a hand. He pretty much just dodged and parried the entire time until the chieftain basically fell asleep.
Right. No.
And then they're like, oh, okay, you're pretty cool.
That is not... You're missing one important part where so Guilliman did his thing where he dodged and parried, and in all of his perfect dodge counters, instead of executing the final finishing move, Guilliman presented him with the Illyrians' most sacred religious artifact, which the Macraggian consuls had stolen beforehand.
Funny how history gets whitewashed, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's the point. So, apparently, according to Lexicanum, Guilliman was like, here, have this thing back that we stole from you. I promise that if I lead you, I will not be a dick. And they believed him.
And then they said pretty much, yeah, I want to be like you.
Yeah.
Yep, so that solved that problem, I guess. And
we almost forgot to talk about Tarasha Uten.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Bobby G had a mom.
The only one?
Yes. Out of all the Primarchs, Rodent Guillotine was the only one who actually had two parent figures, one of whom is apparently still alive.
Yeah, she was at least during the Horseheresy.
Right. Well, again, the 40th millennium is not a billion, is another couple thousand years later. But we'll get to that.
10,000 years.
Yes, we will get to that.
Yeah, so Macragge prospered after this kind of reunification. However, before Macragge could prosper, en route back to Macragge from the Illyrian conquest, there was a coup on the planet in which the other council of the city tried to overthrow the government, and because there was a lot of aristocracy in Macragge, and the noble class thought, hey, why don't we just hold on to our power forever and rule this city as kings? To which Connor, Guilliman, boy's Connor, his adopted father, said, I don't really like that very much, as he was kind of a populist. So there was a coup, there was an attempted coup. Connor died in Guilliman's arms, and then Guilliman killed every single rebel that was in the city.
Yes.
And then he reorganized the entire society of this culture, and made it a meritocracy instead of an aristocracy, meaning that those who work hard, those who earn their position, keep their position. So it was, meritocracies are better for societies. A society could thrive on a meritocracy, whereas an aristocracy kind of perpetuates this class conflict that is continuing forever.
Yes.
So meritocracy, Guilliman, good leader. He kind of did the right thing here.
Yes. And so it was that Bobby G made a really cool little mini space imperium.
Yes. So around the time of the arrival of the Emperor, the Macragge was prospering. It set up its own little empire, not as big as the realm of Ultramar that it would become, but it was a kind of a thriving civilization, and there was trade with exterior systems, and the people felt liberated. It was a good time. Macragge was probably the best place you could be during the 31st millennium.
Right.
30th millennium, whatever. But upon the Emperor arriving, he actually was supposed to arrive beforehand, but he was separated due to a warp storm, and by the time he came back to Macragge, like on schedule, he was 5 years later than he should have been. But he saw this flourishing empire that Guilliman was ruling at this time, and this fair and just kind of region. And the Emperor was impressed, and then he introduced himself like he did to all of his sons, and he handed over leadership of the Ultramarines to Guilliman. It was sort of just like, wow, you're doing a great here, Roboute. I'm proud of you. And then he's like, you're now Grandpappy Smurf of the entire Ultramarines chapter. All right, so moving on to the Great Crusade. The Ultramarines, here's why I think the Ultramarines are one of the best legions, loyalist legions in 40k. Because they were the only ones who did things right. So, by that I mean, they were besides the Luna Wolves, who literally were perfect in every way because Horus had to be the main character, the 13th Legion was the largest legion, the largest of all of the legions. The Ultramarines numbered around 125,000 Astartes, which was more than the Luna Wolves, who had about 100,000. So that's another 25% more, and the reasoning is never made clear. They allude it to be that the fact that the Ultramarines were very good at stewarding, they had the system of recruits, they had a supply chain. Now, my theory, and some other people's in the community's theory, is that either the second or I'm gonna say 10th? I can't remember. No, 10th was whatever the Lost Legions are. Yeah, the Lost and the Purged. I think that some of them were like, hey, I'm gonna join the Ultramarines before my legion gets fucking evaporated, which they did, and I think that's why they're significantly larger than the other legions.
Counter theory. Ultramar, it was not yet the 500 worlds of Ultramar.
It was not yet the 500 worlds, correct.
But there was a good amount of worlds in there to draw recruitment from.
Probably close to 20.
Yeah, that's a good deal more than one.
Yeah, true.
Like, per legion.
Yeah. Okay.
So, by that logic, I feel like it'd be safe to assume that because of the sheer fact that you just have a larger recruitment pool, and that Ultramarines operate in a more general capacity than, say, Salamanders, which focus on flame weapons, or Night Lords, which focus on terror tactics, it makes more sense that you would have much more general-purpose dudes.
Yes, but how are you getting those general-purpose dudes?
Good point.
So, anyway, that's my theory, anyway. That's you can take it or leave it, but that's my theory. Yeah. But, anyway, so the Ultramarines were, the only ones who did their job right. It is said that whenever Guilliman liberated a world, he would not move on until he had set up a self-sufficient defense system, left advisors, created industry, set up trade routes with the rest of the Imperium, and formed a government who was, a meritocracy or some sort of elected official, somewhere where the will of the people were being justly represented.
Right, yes, for the Imperium of Man.
Yes, not the Imperium of Ultramar, right?
Yes. No. He's a self-sufficient meritocracy that will later be absorbed into the Imperium of Man.
Okay, well, at the time, the Imperium Man was not the fucking backwater asshole hattery that it is currently, okay? So, shove that, alright? Take it and shove it up your ass. At this time, the Imperium was okay. They had a Senate. They had an Imperial Senate, alright? Alright? Okay? It was a big thing. It was a good thing. It was a perpetuating good thing until the Emperor died.
Because, as I'm sure you know, the Emperor is the Senate.
Yes, well, not yet. He did become temporarily, but whatever. Well, fuck you.
We'll get there.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why I think the Ultramarines were actually good. Not only did they do this, they did it well, very few casualties. They also excelled at, multidisciplinary fields.
Yes.
They were very well-rounded. They didn't have one shtick, and that was their whole deal. They were good at being soldiers, civilians.
They were general utility Marines.
Exactly. So they are probably, if I had to pick, you know how, the Emperor kind of, erased the Thunder Warriors because they outlived their purpose? It is very frequently talked about what would Astartes do after the Great Crusade was over. I think the Ultramarines were the perfect example of something that could be used after their original purpose was fulfilled.
Right.
Because they are the most useful. The Night Lords, no. The Iron Warriors,
without question.
No. The World Eaters, definitely not. But the Ultramarines, probably. Like,
yeah.
They're
not cannibal vampires.
They're not cannibal vampires. They're talked about as being governors of whole regions. They're talked about being, affluent politicians and honest-to-God generals, and, they're very useful beyond their...
folk.
Yes, they're very useful beyond their original purpose of just rank-and-file soldiery.
Right.
So, around this time, during the Great Crusade, Big Daddy G was introduced to his brothers, the other Primarchs. Obviously, everybody liked Horus. We said that probably 12 times by now. But there was a few that he held in greater esteem: Dorn, Sanguinius, Leman Russ, and Ferrus Manus. He called these the Dauntless Few, because with them, anything could be accomplished.
Wasn't Vulcan part of this group as well?
No.
Ah.
Vulcan was unsettling to look at.
Okay.
And you can't really, honestly, how useful are the salamanders?
From a construction artisanry point of view, incredibly.
Yeah, but how useful is that in perpetuity? Cool. Yeah, you make cool shit. You make cool armor and shit. That's nice. Even Perturabo could build shit. Cool.
I will have my discussion on this subject when we get to if we ever do a Salamanders episode in the next 10,000 years.
Maybe. Yeah, the year is M2. There exists only war.
We are still making podcast episodes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's just that being said. The Dauntless Few very much disliked Lorgar.
As he should.
As everybody should disrespect Lorgar. So much so that the Ultramarines were chosen for a little side quest by the Emperor and Malkador. See, the World Eaters, the Word Bearers, fuck me.
That happens a lot. That happened a lot in the episode of the World Eater episode, too.
Yeah. So the Word Bearers had this little problem where they would like to build temples on every planet that they brought to compliance, imperial compliance. And the temple was dedicated to worshipping the Emperor as the god, the one true god, yada yada yada. So much so that the Emperor said, "Listen, buddy boy, you gotta knock this shit off. I like you, kind of, but you gotta stop with this whole I'm a god nonsense, because I'm not. Please stop it." And then Lorgar said, I get you, and then turned around to Corferon and Erebus and said, he's saying he's not a god to prove that he's a god. And then they just sort of blinked a lot and said, okay. And
it's like, wow, look at how humble he is.
Exactly.
He doesn't think he's worthy of worship. There's dude. Okay.
Yep, whatever. Fucking, I don't care. So the Word Bearers were too concerned on proselytizing the worlds that they brought to compliance. And this kind of came to a head where a planet known as...
Is this Calth?
No, not yet. The city is known as Monarchia. I can't remember if that was the city or the planet. Anyways, Monarchia was a civilization... Okay, Monarchia was a planet. Was the city. It was known as the Perfect City. They're not telling me the name of the planet. Thanks, Lexicana. You're so fucking useful. Anyway, so Monarchia was this perfect city, this civilization molded by Lorgar and the Word Bearers to be the perfect reverent city for the Emperor. And then Malkador kind of hitched a ride on with Roboute Guilliman, Big Blue, and the Ultramarines, along with the Emperor, technically. And he pretty much called the Word Bearers to assemble before Monarchia, in which case the Emperor pretty much bitch-slapped Lorgar, in front of all of his men, and then ordered...
And his people. The people who held him in high regard.
And then ordered Big Blue to nuke Monarchia from orbit. So that happened, and Lorgar was like, hey, that's not really that cool. I don't like the fact that you did that. Yeah, so...
And the Emperor's like, suck it, bitch.
Pretty much, yeah. You didn't listen to me the first time, so I'm gonna have to fucking teach you a lesson. And then he nuked the city with the Ultramarine.
You know how incredibly funny and fucked up way that is? It's like, imagine a giant 6-foot-tall golden dude covered in scriptures comes to your house and spreads to you the good word of his God, who absolutely whose faith in him bitch slaps every other religion on your planet. Yes. So you all turn to him, and then you find out that not only is your God real, he hates your guts.
Yes, because you worship him.
Yes. For that brief moment before Monarchia was dust, God was real and he hated them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a kind of sad realization.
Yeah, right before you are turned to cosmic dust.
Yes. Yeah, it's very unfortunate. So this set up a very contentious relationship with the word bearers from this point going forward. So much so that it's going to come to bite them in the ass in a couple of years. So the Horus Heresy happens. The Ultramarines were nowhere near Ispan 5.
Right.
During the Drop Site Massacre. They were on the other side of the world in their own little pocket empire called the Realm of Ultramar. I realized because I didn't mention this before. Ultramar was a 500 planet kind of coalition ruled by Guilliman, by Roboute Guilliman.
Yes.
As he was sort of the regent of the Realm of Ultramar.
Right. Which he got to keep, unlike Dorn and his empire.
Yes, so Dorn turned his empire over to the Emperor. And when the Emperor came to Ultramar, the Emperor basically said, no, this is yours. You should rule this as you are. And so he did. He became the Steward of Ultramar and ruled a 500 planet pocket empire within the Imperium of Man.
Right. So that makes... Yeah, so that's how you get a sizable force over everyone else.
Yeah, true. That's how you maintain your already sizable number advantage.
A lot of the other chapters had single planets that they would recruit from specifically because this is my home planet, these are the people I trust.
Right.
Where they would, a lot of the time, where the recruits from Terra would be shunned because they're not from that planet. So, that right there is my theory as to how Rabbi Goldman's army stayed so absolutely goddamn ridiculous.
Yeah, Rabbi Goldman.
Yes.
So, the Horus Heresy kicks off. The Ultramarines were called to assemble. Lorgar called Rabbi Goldman and said, hey, buddy boy, we need to kind of team up to fight these orcs that are on the fringe of Ultramar. We need to do this together because I need your help. So Guilliman was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll assemble, like a squad or two. And then Lorgar said, no, you need to bring, like, your whole chapter. Like, the entirety of your chapter, just bring them there. And then Guilliman said, yeah, alright, that sounds good. So they assembled en masse on the planet of Calth.
Yes.
That's Calth.
TH.
I only mention that because sometimes I pronounce words wrong.
It's okay. We all do.
Yeah.
That's part of 40. That's part of
fake
being a 40K
words.
fan.
Yeah, it's fake space words.
Yes.
So, yeah. So Calth, everybody's having a good time. Everybody's kind of chilling. They're all vibing. And then the word bearers start shooting everybody. And they say, surprise! And start murdering all the Ultramarines. So it's a fight that lasts quite a long time. The orbital defense platforms were kind of turned on the Ultramarines. And their fleet was kind of being battered to shit.
Right.
And so there's an interesting character I want to mention here. His name is Aedid Thiel. And he is responsible for sort of the way that the chapter changed after Calth throughout the Horus Heresy and kind of turned into what it is. So Aedid Thiel was just a sergeant. He was just a line sergeant. He wasn't an officer by any means. But he ran these, like, funny calculations where, like, hey, what if the other legions went to war with us? Like, wouldn't that be weird? Wouldn't that be funny? And so he was censured for thinking these thoughts, these heretical thoughts of, like, Astartes can't fight Astartes. That's not something that happens. And then, so he was put on censure. So he painted his helmet. He got his helmet painted red. I just punched myself in the face. He painted his helmet red to show that he's under censure, so he's under, like, official investigation, like a court-martial sort of thing. And he was on Calth that day.
Yes.
He was on the Pride of Macragge, the flagship, or the Macragg's Honor, not the Pride of Macragge. The Macragg's Honor, the flagship of Guilliman himself. And then Calth happened, and then he was like, hey, remember those funny calculations I made? Yeah, I was completely right, go fuck yourself. And yeah, so Thiel was kind of then revered as as the man with the plan sort of thing.
Right, yeah.
Because the Ultramarines were incapable of responding to the situation, and Thiel says it right off the bat. He says, the word bearers are preying on us. Their only advantage is the element of surprise and knowing exactly how we'll respond. Aiden Thiel realized that the dogmatic doctrine of the Ultramarines was way too rigid, and everybody else knew how the Ultramarines were going to respond. So,
you mean to tell me that there was someone who was calling out the book before the space book was written?
Yes. Aiden Thiel said the book is a problem, and then everybody said, what book? And he said, exactly. Yeah, so he was basically critiquing what would eventually be the Codex Astartes.
Right.
But it's because of Aiden Thiel that the entirety of the Ultramarines Legion was not destroyed on Calth.
Right.
Because he was able to kind of rethink situations and basically outthink the word bearers.
Right.
It's actually really funny during the Battle of Calth as well, because Guilliman was exposed to the vacuum of space without a helmet.
Right.
And then proceeded to float his way through space, unassisted, back into the Macragg's Honor to snap a dude's neck. It's really fucking funny.
Right. I had heard of... I forgot that was in Calth.
Yeah, it was about Calth. He literally was like, he was on the Macragge Honor bridge, it got blown up, and then they're like, oh no, our lord, he's dead. And then like 25 minutes later, we just see him like crawl his way back through an airlock, his face just all flustered and red from being exposed to the vacuum of space. And then he just starts beating fuckers up with his fists.
You know what? I feel like it would be implied that even if Guilliman didn't write a Codex Astartes, he would have had a book before that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, he was
Boy
actually...
Scouts gotta have their first edition manual.
Yeah, he was actually writing the drafts of the Codex Astartes by the time Imperium Secundus came around, which was a little after this.
Right.
He wrote it in response to Calth, technically.
Right.
So
Calth, the battle that they won because the guy said, because the dude got up and said, fuck this book, we need to think better.
Yeah.
He wrote a book in response to somebody going, fuck this book.
Yep. Yes, exactly. So after the Battle of Calth, Roboute Guilliman went to resecure the borders of Ultramar and to fight the Shadow Crusade, which was the World Eaters and Word Bearers kind of teaming up to delete the Ultramarines.
Right.
After that, the Battle of Calth is actually what triggered the Ruin Storm, that thing created by Erebus.
Right.
To separate Ultramar from the rest of the galaxy. We've talked about this a couple times.
Yes.
But yeah, so the Ultramarines were kind of isolated, along with, conveniently enough, the Dark Angels and the Blood Angels.
Yes.
And the three brothers, Lionel Johnson, Sanguinius, and Roboute Guilliman, Roboute Guilliman, would then create Imperium Secundus.
Yes.
Which,
like, everything is gone!
Yeah. Sanguinius is now the Emperor. Yeah, so that happened. Guilliman didn't really find... So Guilliman was like the chief architect and like the administrator of Imperium Secundus, whereas Lionel Johnson was the War Master and Sanguinius was the Emperor. So he still was like being an administrator, which he was very good at, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what he was doing for the majority of the Horus Heresy. He would then fist fight Conrad Kurz during Conrad Kurz's kind of terror campaign through Ultramar. We've talked about it.
Yes.
Go listen to Conrad Kurz or Lionel Johnson. Can't remember.
Well, Conrad Kurz specifically, because that's the one where we mentioned how Guilliman's mom is alive and how
and she like
she yelled at Conrad, which distracted him for long enough.
For
Vulcan
Guilliman,
to
for Vulcan to
come
just delete
barreling
him.
through, just you!
Yep.
Just football tackle him out of a palace window.
Yep, pretty much. Yes, so... Yes, they went... I'm just trying to reorganize. They tried, Kurz, Guilliman, Guilliman was part of the trial of Conrad Kurz, of the trial of the Triumvirate.
Yes.
And then after which they determined that the Emperor was alive, and that they needed to make all haste to Terra to save the Emperor from the siege, which was already underway.
Yes.
Yeah. So they all kind of break off from Ultramar. The Dark Angels, and the Ultramarines kind of stall out the demons of the Ruinstorm to allow Sanguinius and the Blood Angels to make it through the blockade into Terra, and they do so. He then kind of falls in line after this, along with the Dark Angels. They kind of come to rescue Terra as a relief force. Once the siege breaks, they chase the Traitor Legions back into the Eye of Terror. But before this could happen, and sometime after all of this, he writes the Codex Astartes, obviously. The space book saves... they pelt the Perturabo and the Iron Warriors with the space book until they leave Rogel Dorn alone.
The Great Scouring is basically just all of them throwing Guilliman's space book, piles of the space book at them until they run away.
Exactly, yeah. However, so all of the legions were reorganized into chapters.
Yes,
Which
was a dumb move.
Which was a dumb move. We've talked about why. It essentially thins out an already thinned defense force.
I don't think we ever had the formal conversation as to why the space book is bad.
Okay, we should probably do that then.
Yes.
So the Codex Astartes, Guilliman's fucking magnum opus, is not good.
Yes.
It decrees that all legions of Space Marines need to be separated into units of 1,000 men. This is a problem.
Yes, because it takes the already weakened defense forces of the planet Earth and humanity and thins it out even more. And due to the nature of the independent nature of the Space Marines in their various legions, it will make forming a greater cohesive army even more difficult.
Almost impossible, some might say.
Yes, because of the sheer diversity in the philosophies of various successor chapters, of which the Ultramarines have like 2 bajillion.
Yeah, they have like fucking like 48 successor chapters.
That's basically a bajillion.
Yeah.
And furthermore, aside from all of that other stuff, he chose to implement it right after the Horus Heresy happened.
Yeah,
which
when they were
really,
already thinned.
Yes. But the reason I bring that up is because that trick will really only work on the reason it was set up is to stop people from having too much power. But as we have proven, as the various Chaos Legions have proven, the Primarchs who fell were already susceptible to falling to Chaos before.
Yes.
So, it stands to reason that fracturing the armies now would make even less sense because the people who are here because they are able to resist the laughter of thirsting gods.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas, if they were to fracture, that would leave them individual and vulnerable compared to a singular cohesive army. Thus foiling its own point.
Yes. It's a self-redundant piece of shit that causes more harm than good.
Yes. And that is why the space book is bad.
That's why the space book's bad. And it's a problem. If you're not coherent to the space book, then people fucking hate you.
Yeah, and you disappear.
Like Captain Titus.
Yes.
Who disappeared for an entire decade.
Yes.
So Captain Titus was the protagonist from Space Marine 1.
Yes.
The Games Workshop relic, over-the-shoulder, kind of RPG, on-the-rails story shooter game.
Yeah.
Very fun game, but
yes.
Captain Titus was criticized for his use of warp technology
and not wearing a helmet.
And his
by Leandros.
And his inadherence to the Codex Astartes. So much so that Leandros, the little shit-eating sidekick in the game, reported him to the Inquisition, reported as superior to the Inquisition, which he was taken away and not seen from again for 10 whole years in real life, where in Space Marine 2, he's back and better than ever, and apparently served out a stint in the Inquisition, crossed the Rubicon Primaris, became a Primaris Marine, and is back to cut up Tyranids.
Yes. Somehow, and where is Leandros during all this? Probably dead.
Hopefully dead.
Yes,
I guess we'll find out when the game comes out in fucking 12 more years.
We will find out Leandros turned to chaos.
Maybe. That'd be really funny.
That would be really funny if we call it here, and then whenever the game comes out, it's like, oh my god, Leandros turned to chaos.
Yeah, because we have I don't know if people who listen to this show have realized, we have a prophetic gift here.
Or at least a very good track record.
Very good track record. We talked about Jagged Icon, then, new Jagged Icon model, new Jagged Icon book, new White Scars material. It's happened with other shit, too. I just can't remember off the top of my head.
It happened with the Orcs. It happened with the Krieg. It happened with the Tau.
The Tau, yep.
We joked about the Tau getting more shit, and they did.
Yep. So, maybe we're right about this one, too. I don't know.
Who knows?
Put money on it? I don't know.
We'll see.
If you do put money on it, I want a 25% cut, but we'll get to that.
Just donate 25% of it to the podcast.
There you go.
Yes.
But yeah, so post-heresy, after the events of the Horus Heresy, obviously everybody was depleted. Guilliman assumed the title of Lord Commander of the Imperium. As Rogel Dorn was gone, and Jagged Icon was gone. And
Vulcan was here,
gone, sort of.
No, Vulcan was here.
Vulcan was here till the War of the Beast, and then Vulcan was gone. But after that, Guilliman was gone too. Anyway, so he assumed the title of Lord Commander of the Imperium for like maybe 6 minutes. He fought over the moons of a planet called Thessala. Guilliman, row your boat, girly boy. Faced down his wayward brother of Fulgrim. The Emperor's children fought they were trying to kind of take these worlds for themselves, and the Ultramarines, the Nova Marines, the Blue Boys, the Smurfs, and and the Electric Blue Carpet, they all fought together. Because, they had to break up into fucking chapters. They all fought the Emperor's children, and during this battle, Guilliman was cut across the throat with a demon blade.
Yes, apparently according to Lexicanum, apparently he was stabbed in the neck, and I'm just like, how?
Yeah, so it's in the preamble, the first chapter or so of Dark Imperium. And it was basically a big fight where Guilliman was trying to bait out Fulgrim on his pride and shit.
Right.
And Guilliman, who at this time had the Sword of the Emperor, according to Dark Imperium, which doesn't make sense to me. And I think that was an incorrect retcon. But for some reason, GW said that Guilliman had the Sword of the Emperor before he went into stasis, which I don't feel like was true.
Wasn't the whole point? Wasn't there supposed to be a whole dramatic moment
when he got the sword from the Emperor?
Yes.
Once meeting with him on Terra.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened, but now they're saying 10,000 years before that happened, he also had the Sword of the Emperor?
So what, did he just give it back?
I don't know.
It's like, Dad, I need to borrow your sword for a minute. He finishes the fight, and then he fights Fulgrim, gets knocked the fuck out. While they take him away in stasis, someone else has to take the Emperor's sword, which is about the size of a literal fucking surfboard, and has to carry that shit, which is also on fire, all the way back to his throne and put it on his chair.
Yeah,
like,
no, it doesn't
Your Eminence, here, I sharpened and polished it for you.
It doesn't make sense, because I feel like that's wrong. But
Thanks,
I guess
GW.
that's harping on little points. Like, I don't think that's a little point. I think it kind of changes the meaning of a lot of things, but whatever.
It does, yes. Thanks, GW. Thanks for that.
Yeah, so Robert Guile's theme was put into stasis after being stabbed in the neck with Svolgrim's Demon Blade, and for 10,000 years he sat basically on a lazy boy. For 10,000 years he was just sort of chilling in stasis.
Yes.
And then some weird bullshit happens between Belisarius Cawl, who's a tech priest, Yervain, the
We need
Eldar,
to talk about this. This is
the
a
weird
big deal.
Eldar death cult.
Yeah, this is we should at least talk about how Belisarius Cawl. Belisarius Cawl made better Space Marines.
Yeah.
Marginally better Space Marines.
Before Guilliman went into stasis,
The pain in your voice.
Before Guilliman went into stasis, he had a conversation with an up-and-coming tech priest in the Mechanicum called Belisarius Cawl.
Yes.
So, preemptively, he asked him to bring him back should he become entombed in stasis, which is a weird thing to say to somebody.
He's like, hello, new intern guy.
Hello.
If I die, can you bring me back? Sweet.
Yes.
Can you make sure that I have a 6 set of armor?
Bitchy.
Okay, cool. Good talk. I'm definitely going to come back. That's just a contingency. I'm definitely going to go out, and I'm definitely going to come back. See you in a couple hours, little buddy.
Yep, and then 10,000 years later, he woke up. But yeah.
I have a question. Was
Yeah.
Belisarius called the giant centipede nightmare monster that we know today by the point?
No. So he
pre-stasis?
actually shows up in the Horus Heresy. Belisarius
Oh.
Cawl is in the Horus Heresy. And it's a weird, call forward, because I don't think Belisarius Cawl was a character yet in modern 40k, at the point where this Horus Heresy book was written, but he was literally just, a weird, low-ranked tech priest on, a weird, Mechanicum outpost in the middle of space somewhere. So yeah,
he was
he's
not
like-
Belisarius Cawl, he's just intern.
Yeah, he was just a weird, he wasn't the weird crippled creature that we know today.
Yes.
The weird, schizophrenic,
monster.
slightly insane man that he is now. I think he was just a weird, tech priest then.
Yes.
But yeah, he's in modern 40k too.
Right. So
so-
Belisarius Cawl worked with Yvrain, which means we finally do have to talk about elves at
No, we
least
don't.
a little bit.
No, you're Vainward, the Eldar death cult. That's it.
Fine. We are going to have to make an Elder episode eventually.
I don't want to.
I'll lead it.
I know we have to, but I don't want to. So,
I mean,
the other
they
thing...
just got new models.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the Eldar just got new models, everybody, if you're listening to this currently. The Eldar just released the first new box set. They released
Since Clinton.
Guardians and Rangers, and a, whatever the Lords are called, the commander units.
Right.
For the first time in, 27 years, the Eldar have new models, so that's fun.
Yeah.
The other thing that Red Bull Gasoline asked Belisarius Cawl to do before he went into stasis was to create the next generation of Space Marines.
Right.
These
And
are...
like most next generations, they're kind of mediocre, slight improvements over the first ones.
They're just taller.
Yeah, proving that in the grim dark future of the 41st millennium, there is not only war, there is also EA.
Yeah, the fucking loot box came out for the...
No. They made FIFA. It's like how they keep making new 2Ks, and it's just the same 2K with graphical upcharge.
Yeah.
It's that. That's what Primaris Marines are.
They're literally 7 inches taller, and they have an extra organ.
That's it.
Pretty much it. They react a little faster too.
That took several thousand years to do.
Yeah. That's it. But those are the Primaris Marines, in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about them more later in another episode, maybe.
Well, we would kind of talk about them a little bit, because the Primaris Marines are a very Ultramarine thing.
They are literally Gabriel Seth, the chapter master of the Flesh Terrors, did not like the Primaris Marines because he thought they were just different colored Ultramarines.
Well, they are.
They are, technically. Literally speaking, the models are literally just different colored Ultramarines, but
Yes.
in lore, they kind of are also sort of just Ultramarines.
Yes.
But yeah. So for 10,000 years, he was interned in stasis.
Right.
And he woke up with the help of some elf magic and some Belisarius call. I don't know.
Bullshit.
Whatever he did.
Yes.
He did something, I guess.
Who at this point is a horrifying centipede monster.
Yeah,
like,
he just
be
says,
healed, my lord.
yeah.
And Roboute Guilliman was like, why?
Yeah.
I'm old. Just let me die.
Let me die. Let me die in peace. So Roblox Guilliman kind of got up after this and went to Terra, fought Magnus on the way. Apparently he had the Sword of the Emperor the whole time, but now he has the Sword of the Emperor for sure. Whatever.
Yes.
And then he kind of reorganized to fight an encroaching Black Crusade.
Right. The 14th Black Crusade.
13th.
Oh, it's still the 13th?
It's still the 13th. Technically, we're still in 13, like, today. Like, Vigilus Fallen was all 13th.
Huh.
13th started with Cadia falling.
Oh. Huh.
So yeah, in case you're not unaware, Abaddon the Spoiler, who is now in charge of all the Traitor Legions, formed the Black Legion, and has launched, up to this date, 13 Black Crusades out of the Eye of Terror into the Imperium and extraneous space to achieve specific goals. So if you use that metric, most of them were successes.
Yes.
If you're like everybody else, though, they were all failures. Yeah, so the Black Crusades, the 13th Black Crusade started with Abaddon the Spoiler dropping a Blackstone fortress, which is the size of about a small planet,
onto a slightly bigger planet.
Onto a slightly bigger planet by the name of Cadia, which was like a kind of bastion world against the Eye of Terror. And most of the population are all Imperial Guard.
Cadia stands, blah,
Cadia,
blah, blah.
You know, the planet broke before the Guard did.
Yeah, we've said that joke a bunch of times already.
Yeah, fuck
Cadia stands!
Nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like weird, purple-eyed, militaristic weirdos, but it's all cool. Yeah, so after this, the Roberto Guillermo. That's the one. Kind of waged a civil war within the Imperium, where he tried to oust. Well, technically, it's the other way around. The Adeptus Ministorum, the priesthood and whatnot, the papacy, if you will, of the 40k world, tried to oust Guilliman because they're like, ah, shit. He knows the truth. He knows this is all a bunch of bullshit. And Guilliman said, go fuck yourself. And they kind of fought each other for a bit, to no real gain. I don't really know the end bit of that whole scheme, but...
Well, the end bit of it is the Guilliman becomes the new regent of
Yes, so he becomes Lord Commander again.
Yes. He takes over, he declares himself Imperial Regent, he defends Earth against the forces of Khorne in the Second Battle of Terra.
Yeah, because they invaded.
Yes.
And then he is currently at war with Mortarion, as Mortarion has unleashed a plague upon the realms of Ultramar.
Yes. I would like to call it out. I'd like to thank TTS for predicting Ultra Depression.
Oh, yes, of course.
Ultra Depression. We can finally talk about Ultra Depression.
Yes, of course.
See, Bobby G was around from more or less the beginning, was around for all of it, you know? The Great Crusade. His legion was the one who glassed Monarchia.
Yes.
He was present for the Emperor giving Lorgar his grand speech about I am not a god, stop worshipping me, your stupid fucking Lactato Divinitatis fanfiction is nonsense, get rid of it, I'm going to burn your planet down.
Yep.
And then he was knocked out, and fast forwarded a couple thousand years or so, and he wakes up and he finds out that people are now preaching out of Lorgar's book.
Ain't that ironic?
Yep. So people are like, so everyone else, including the High Lords of Terra in the beginning, are like, oh, good Emperor, one of your sons has returned to show us your way. And he was like, God damn it, you missed the point.
We used to beat people up for saying things like that.
Yep. Just like, why? Just constantly, whenever he's done being Lord Imperial Regent Roboute Guilliman, he goes and he sits and he holds his head in his hands and it's just like, I have failed you.
Yeah.
Literally, that is a conversation that he has.
Yes.
Which is like, if Lorgar, this was why, the whole reason we fought is because Horus thought you were going to become a god if they could only see the world now.
Yeah.
Also, before we start talking about the various important Ultramarines, we have one more thing to talk about Bobby G.
Okay.
Bobby G's elf girlfriend.
Oh my god, I thought we were done with this.
Oh, we're not. I ran out of jokes. That was my joke. Roboute Guilliman is not actually in a relationship with Yvrain, the weird Eldar centrist. But he has spoken much more kindly to her than literally any other Imperial member ever. He spoke to her with respect and decency, which is a lot nicer than the average Space Marine speaks to any other elf, except maybe that one Blood Raven who's friends with that one elf, Matcha. Farseer Matcha.
Yeah.
And we know the jokes that people used to make about
them having a sexual...
Angelos and Matcha, yeah.
Yeah.
Where they would just go and talk in private for several hours and no one would hear from them.
Yeah.
But Matcha would always come out tired from psychic nonsense, she said.
Alright.
Yes.
That's more than I want to devote to this subject.
Please email us your various Guilliman x Yvrain fanfictions at thebattlebrothercast@gmail.com.
Alright, you do that. I will just forward them to somebody else.
Important Ultramarine folk people.
Yeah, sure. So...
Oh my god, we didn't even go through all the names.
I know. No, there's still much more to talk about. Don't worry. So,
okay.
Bobby Hillman has engaged Mortarion in this most recent kind of offshoot of 40k called the Plague Wars, in which Mortarion is kind of wreaking havoc through Ultramar in preparation for a big thing with Nurgle that may or may not be happening. But Mortarion and Rutherford Guilliman have repeatedly come to blows, and there's like one Primarch fight in every book so far, and I think there's 4 books of the Plague War series. Mm-hmm. So they're pretty good. Yeah, so he has his father's sword in full-on in the model itself. Roboute Guilliman has a modern model, and in the model he has the sword of the Emperor in his hand.
Right.
And he looks kind of cool, I guess.
If you like that.
If you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you like blue.
Yes.
Yeah, so... he became Lord Commander of the Imperium. I want to talk about a little bit about the structure of the Ultramarines.
Okay.
Because while Roboute Guilliman has the kind of the overall say over all Ultramarines chapters, because he's their Primarch, which nobody else has at this point, technically Marneus Calgar is the chapter master of the Ultramarines and has kind of official say over what they do. Right. And it's kind of weird, like, the contention that's there, because, yes, Marneus Calgar is loyal to Guilliman, to Roboute Gigabyte, but technically speaking, he has the official capacity as chapter master, according to the book.
Which is very important.
Yes. Oh, fuck me. You need to talk about Uriel Ventress now.
Oh, I do. Give me a moment. Uriel Ventress. Also, apparently Uriel Ventress has a model.
Yes, he does.
Yes. Honestly, good for him. His haircut may be whack.
And his story is kind of whack.
May be fucked. But he does have a model. Why does he have a model? Because of the Damunculaba. We already spoke about that in what that is in the Iron Warriors episode, but now we get to talk about Captain Ventress's actions on Medrengard. So, Captain Ventress was given... So Captain Ventress did the thing that the book did not like.
Yes.
And so, he was given a death oath by Calgar himself. And he and his faithful companion, Sergeant Lysane, were to seek out a place of dark iron which is a place that Calgar was having visions about, where twisted reflections of the Space Marines were being horribly wrought. Now, they referenced the book's section on weird visions and figured that the place that it was directing them to was somewhere in the Eye of Terror.
Shocking.
So they started going in that direction.
Way to go, book. Really nailed it that time. You just narrowed down maybe a third of space. All right.
Exactly. Which would have been much more useful because they probably would have just gone around the entire galaxy. If they weren't kidnapped by demons and imprisoned within a demon engine, which apparently looked like a giant train.
Interesting.
Yes. So they went to so after much traveling, they ended up on the Iron Warriors planet of Medrengard. And so, while they were there, they met a band of renegade Space Marines, who are Space Marines that aren't really affiliated with their chapters anymore, but haven't turned to Chaos, so they're like Ronin Space Marines.
Yeah.
And two Imperial Guardsmen.
Some of them have turned to Chaos, but not all of them.
These ones didn't. And two surviving Imperial Guardsmen, who were captured by the Iron Warriors from the Imperial Fists. So they became a band of guerrillas who did guerrilla tactic things, which is covered in chapter 27-4, subsection Delta of the book.
The book.
Yes, I'm going to keep making jokes about the book to distract from the horribleness that's going on.
That is very good.
Okay, so after much use of the book and its various implementations of guerrilla warfare, they were captured by Warsmith Hansu. And after insulting him and calling him a little bitch, Ventress was vored into a Demunculaba. To those of you who don't know what that means, good for you.
Good for you.
Those of you who do, yeah.
Stay that way.
Good. We know what the Demunculaba is. The Demunculaba is a horrible birthing womb made from a human woman who is still alive and sentient and is fed to horrible bloating size, and is used as a transfer biomechanical birthing tube pod thing, which apparently is inspired by the axolotl tanks from Dune.
Really?
If you want to get apparently it's similar. It's similar enough where people who know notice.
That's traumatizing.
Yes. So, he was implanted into one, but the Demunculaba wasn't like a single entity. It was apparently like a rows and rows of pods made of people. Moving on, the Iron Warriors were using the Demunculabas to implant stolen Imperial Fist gene seed to create Iron Warriors, because they couldn't really recruit from people, and so they took the various people from in and around Medrengard, or from the world of Hydrocordatus, or just wherever they could find people, particularly children, and turn them into Space Marines. So those new Space Marines were born without skin, because, they're born from horrible nightmare tubes, and, if you're gonna be gross, be all the way. And, naturally, Uriel Ventress did not enjoy any of this that happened. So he punched his way out of the pod, and fell through a river of gore. And I mean that in a very literal... There was like a river made of discarded chunks and placental juice and other bile and human wastage. And eventually, Uriel Ventress met the Unfleshed, which were failed experiments, were basically like big humans with the brains of children, because that's what they were. And these big skinless baby men people worshipped the Emperor. And so they had a giant effigy of the Emperor, who Uriel Ventress and his band of renegade Space Marines were thrown to, and the eyes of the giant statue lit up, and they were like, Inka Dinka Doo likes you, we will fight with you now. And so they escaped, and then Ventress was like, I have to go back, I can't go anywhere else. And then the other Space Marines who were with them were like, nah, fuck you, we're leaving. And the two
understandably so.
Yes, but the two guards, who were normal human dudes, who were also put inside Demunculabas, went back with him. Because, in case you didn't realize, the Guard are the real heroes of the 40K.
Yeah.
Guard are, pound for pound, mentally more resilient than your average Space Marine.
Yeah.
So, stuff happened, the Unfleshed killed things, and eventually Uriel Ventress and Pausanias Lysane destroyed the Demunculabas, and eventually Uriel Ventress was teleported to a different planet named Salinas, and blah 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 blah. There was a planetary governor that he fought. The Grey Knights showed up at some point.
Good.
And the Grey Knights, this is after they leave Medrengard, so the Grey Knights showed up and were just like, we need to make sure you haven't fallen to chaos. And apparently Uriel Ventress was tested and found that he was good. And so he came back after much more nonsense. The wiki page is very, very long. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. After a bunch of stuff, including dealing with the Grey Knights, killing the Unfleshed, and dealing with the Vengeful Psyker and killing the corrupt governor, eventually the Grey Knights did something completely uncharacteristic to Grey Knightdom and just let the Ultramarines go back to Macragge.
Which is
and
something
so they
that's
did.
Never happened and has never happened since.
Yep. Because they heard about the Demunculaba and decided, you know what? It would be better for him if we killed him.
Yeah.
We're going to keep you alive so you can remember this moment forever.
Yeah.
And so it was. And so was Uriel Ventress. He did a bunch of other stuff. He fought the invasion of Ultramar because he fought Hansu when he came back to invade Ultramar. That happened. There's stuff that happened during the Black Crusade. He was there when Guilliman woke up.
Yep.
He also became a Primaris Marine.
Yep.
He's very accomplished, but he has to live with the fact that the thing that made him initially famous was the Demunculaba. So even in lore, people know him as the Demunculaba guy.
Oh god.
Yes. So that's not just me making jokes. In lore, he's known as the Ultramarine who went to Medrengar and lived, because Hansu followed him from Medrengar. And that was when he led the Iron Warriors attack on Macragge.
Yeah.
Specifically because he hated him. Yes. He went to the Iron Warriors Chaos homeworld of Nightmare Cleveland to Detroit, of basically was effectively Chicago mixed with hell.
Yeah.
And left to talk about it, survived being tried by the Grey Knights, and then helped repel Hansu when Hansu came back for his revenge.
Hansu, who is essentially the Iron Warrior right now, he's basically in charge of most of the Iron Warrior Legion.
Yes. So that's Uriel Ventress.
Yeah.
The Demunculaba guy.
The Demunculaba guy. Well,
yes.
That's a shame.
Yes.
Ultra depression creeps further in.
Yes.
Yeah, so another also notable member of the Ultramarine Legion is Vero Tigoris. He's not a whole lot, but he's essentially the most powerful Psyker in the entire Imperium.
Uh-huh. Wow.
He can do pretty much whatever he wants. He wants to beat all of the 7. They're called the 7 sorcerers of like Harka or something. They're like really prominent Tzeentchian sorcerers, and he defeated all 7 of them at the same time. He pretty much just did like a thunder wave spell and killed all of them.
At 9th level, of
At
course.
9th, he pulled a 9th level thunder wave spell, like out of his ass.
Yes. That's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, he's the chief librarian currently of the Ultramarines Legion, or of the Ultramarines chapter, and he is like the greatest Psyker like in the Imperium. Besides like maybe Mephiston, who is the Lord of Death of the Blood Angels Legion, of the Blood Angels chapter. Fuck, I always do that. It's so stupid.
They all sound the same.
They all sound the same. Yeah. So yeah, he's pretty cool. Other notable members are Aiden Thiel, who I mentioned before. He later became the captain of the 2nd Company after the whole censure thing on Calth. Most of the command structure of the Ultramarines Legion died, so he was like one of the few ones that were left, worth of promoting.
Right.
Another kind of important character is Cato Sicarius.
You do this one.
It is I, Cato Sicarius, captain of the second Ultramarines Company. Cato Sicarius was the captain of the second Ultramarines Company. Also, he is known as the most annoying head-ass in the entire 40k universe.
By a large margin.
By a large
Lucius.
margin. Yeah, beating Lucius. He's more annoying than Lucius. Cato Sicarius was one of the few members of the Ultramarines, of the Space Marines in general, who was allowed to keep, like, remnants of his own life. Like, he was a son of nobility, and he maintained nobility after becoming an Ultramarine. Something that you're not allowed to do as a Space Marine.
Unless you are either an Ultramarine, or a Salamander, or a Grey Knight, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. He's the only one I know of who is continued to hold rank.
Right.
Yeah.
He has a sword and is dick.
So he is a swords master. He is considered one of the greatest swordsmen in the Imperium, and he likes reminding people about that.
Constantly.
He is the commander of the Vitrix Guard as well, which are like the personal bodyguard of the Primarch. He's an asshole. Yeah, he's done some shit. Sure. Do we care? No.
In time, Cato Sicarius' very name became a byword for Imperial victory. A legend that came to the ears of allies and foes alike far beyond the borders of Ultramar. Does that mean that every time someone wins, they call it doing a Sicarius?
Yeah.
That's horrifying.
It is I, Cato Sicarius. He has a model. It's from 5th edition, which came out in like 2002? 2003?
My god, an Ultramarine that doesn't have current models? What is this?
The model looks disgusting. He had a 4th edition model too, but that looks even weirder. Yeah, he's not cool. He thinks he's cool. I fucking hate him.
I feel like people who unironically enjoy Cato Sicarius, please yell at us.
Yeah, please. Prove
to me, to anyone, why this is good. He's basically just a... Like, we joked about a Greco-Roman man being the Primarch of what is effectively blue Centurions.
Yes.
But this is the most notable form of, like, yes, hello, I am from Rome. Our symbol is the Omega. I have a big sideways Centurion helmet and a sword. I am super duper Roman.
Yeah.
In a moment, I'm going to eat a fine leg of lamb at the Colosseum. I don't know why. I can't think of any other Roman things to do that aren't jokes about pedophilia.
Yeah, or like, I'm gonna buy this man and then sell him to another man for a profit.
Exactly. I'm just literally scrolling through the results of typing Cato Sicarius into Google, and one of the first couple of results were, It's I, Cato Sicarius, the greatest of the Ultramarines, who requires that Marvel produce a comic of I, Cato Sicarius, for I, Cato Sicarius, am the most noble of all Space Marines.
Oh yeah, in case you guys didn't know, Marnius Calgar, the current chapter master, had a Marvel comic book that came out recently.
Right. That people hated?
People fucking despised it.
I do not know why.
It was sort of written without, like, people who know what 40k is, like, writing it. And, like, they heavily well insinuated that, Marnius Calgar respected the fact that the Chaos Gods existed. And, like, that's not something you talk about, like, as a Space Marine.
Right.
You don't recognize the fact that Khorne is a thing. Like, I remember people being very... I didn't read it, because I didn't want to. But I remember people being very angry about it.
Question. Wouldn't that be a thing that he knows anyway, being the chapter master of the Ultramarines?
You would hope, but you never know.
It's like, yes, the Chaos Gods, when that make from like a logical standpoint, yes, my enemies have a thing that they pray to. Fuck that thing.
Yes, but the Emperor didn't tell any of his Primarch sons.
Ah. So naturally, Marnius Calgar wouldn't know that because, as I'm sure you know, what the Emperor not telling people means that it will never be found out by anyone.
Never, ever, 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 ever.
Yes, and it will never bite anyone in the ass.
Terribly so. Never. Never so.
Yes.
Never.
Yes.
Yes, so that is pretty much the life of, Rob Gerber, baby.
Yes. We can't talk about the Ultramarines without talking about... Did we talk about Captain Titus already?
We did, yes.
Space Marine 2!
Space Marine 2, it's very exciting. It's very exciting. Very exciting. I'm very excited. I'm very excited. The trailer looked amazing.
Yes. There is literally no other anything that GW has made that will ever come close to the hype that will be generated from Space Marine 2. But before we sign off, we have to read off some honorable mentions.
Good, yes.
Bobbert, not Matt Ward Man. Bitchface, Elf Fucker Man. Robert, and Roberto Guilliman.
Yes, don't forget
applause.
That blue fucking nerd.
Yes.
Billy Bob Plot Armorman.
Billy Bob Plot Armorman.
Billy Bob Plot Armorman. Ron John Go Hang Ten. Rim Job Goat Trail Roadman. Roman Go Gillian.
Robert Gullible.
Robert Gullible. Yes, and then there's just Rob.
Yes. Proving once and for all, we have done all of the names. We have done what no other 40K podcast has ever done, and we have at least tried to use different names for each reference of Roboute Guilliman, because his name is fucking stupid. He has Boute in his first name.
Yes, his name is Big Dumb, and we all have to admit that.
Yes, and now, a quote. I'm just gonna... Lorgar of Colchis. There it is, something generic and bland. The Wonder Bread of dramatic voices.
Something very white.
Yes. Lorgar of Colchis. You may consider the following. 1. I entirely withdraw my previous offer of solemn ceasefire. It is cancelled, and will not be made again to you or any other of your motherless bastards. 2. You are no longer any brother of mine. I will find you, I will kill you, and I will hurl your toxic corpse into hell's mouth. And then Lorgar was like, joke's on you, I'm into that shit.
Yep, and that's how the Battle of Kelth went.
Yes. Lorgar did indeed find out that he was actually, most definitely, not.
Into that shit, yeah. Yep. So that is the Ultramarines and Robo Gilly Boy.
Yes.
So,
we sat down, we made a list of names, we used all of them.
Yeah, we did. We used every single one of those fucking names.
Victory.
Victory indeed. Next one is the Death Guard, number 14.
Yay, Mortari, Stank Dick Morty, and his unwashed gremlins.
Those are the boys. So, come back next time as we delve into the fucking putrid mess that is the Death Guard's lore. And with that, we will leave you. Ave Imperator.
Ave Imperator.